On this episode, we travel to Philadelphia to talk with Phillywalks about sidewalks as centers of activity. Bicycles and Segway scooters belong in bike lanes, not on sidewalks. The Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission is studying pedestrian access to commuter train stations. The ability to travel on their own is crucial to the independence of individuals with developmental disabilities. And finally, we look at how the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation tells pedestrians to go away. Stay tuned. We're in Philadelphia talking with Peter Hecht, who's president of Phillywalks. What is Phillywalks?
Phillywalks is the only grassroots pedestrian advocacy and information group in the state of Pennsylvania.
And what do you folks try to do?
We try to keep the public and the municipal and state governments aware of issues that affect pedestrians, of problems that are occurring, and the impact of legislation on the ability of people to actually walk in Philadelphia and the state of Pennsylvania.
It's a little quiet on the sidewalk behind us because it's early on a weekend morning. What would this sidewalk be like at noon on a weekday?
It'd be very busy. There'd be people coming up and down. There'd be street vendors selling food probably at the corner. There'd be people all over the place, which is a good sort of indication of what the sidewalk is for. Across the street, there's a coffee shop, and people would be sitting out, and people would be walking by and stopping to talk with them. You know, people would be walking their dogs down in the residential neighborhoods. Kids would be out playing. That's really the life of the street. People will be looking in shop windows and coming in and out of places to buy. They're waiting for the bus. There's all sorts of different activities going on the street. You know, the sidewalk's not really a roadway that pedestrians happen to inhabit. It's a place where there's conversation going on, where there's community life going on, where people are buying things or selling things even. There's newspaper, the honor boxes. We all sort of have all this street furniture that recognizes all the different activities that go on a sidewalk, which is fine. Unfortunately, the way that some of our governments tend to treat the sidewalk as if it's just, another part of the road that, cars typically don't go on, although in this city they tend to park on this too.
But what happens? What happens when you try to treat the sidewalk as a road for pedestrians?
Well, then you actually cut down on community life. You cut out the real reason for a sidewalk being there, is that so people can do things other than just move. We don't spend our lives just moving down the street, not watching other people, running into others and discussing events or what we're going to do, or making plans, or just playing out here waiting for the bus. Once you treat it as a road, then why not put something else on it? Why not put, that new the human transport of the Segway on it?
What's going to happen when you put a fast-moving vehicle like that?
Object.
Yeah,
on
65 pounds of metal that
65 pounds of metal that can travel up to, according to early specs on the web, 19.7 miles per hour. Guess what? Guess who gets shoved out of the way is going to be the pedestrian. And also I have actually ridden one of these in a test, and they're quiet, and you can't hear them. So anyone with a disability, or coming up from behind, or those who might be blind or can't move so quickly, are at risk from this. They're the ones who are going to get pushed out of the way, threatened by it. It's bad enough crossing the street. There's intimidation from cars that, don't yield to pedestrians. But then on the one place where the pedestrian is supposedly has the right of way, to introduce vehicles that by their very nature threaten a large percentage of pedestrians and undercut the types of activities that ought to and do go on the sidewalk is a major problem. These things belong in the street with the bicycles, and that's where the bicyclists would prefer them, is in the bicycle lanes, but not on the sidewalk. Yes, they are very flexible and they can move slowly, but we know very well from looking at cars, things that can go faster will go faster.
We're talking with Nancy Lavin, who's Vice President of Phillywalks. What does Pennsylvania law say about bicycles on sidewalks?
The Pennsylvania statute says, quote, "A person shall not ride a pedicycle upon a sidewalk in a business district unless permitted by official traffic control devices, nor when a usable pedicycle-only lane has been provided adjacent to the sidewalk." The city of Philadelphia has refined that code even more so by saying no person shall ride a bicycle upon a sidewalk within a business district, as such district is defined in the vehicle code. And also, no person 12 years of age or more shall ride a bicycle upon any sidewalk in any district.
Okay, so to sum it up, in residential districts, children are allowed on the sidewalk, but adults should be in the street. In the business district, nobody should be on a bicycle on a sidewalk. What problems does it create when bicyclists ride on the sidewalk?
It creates problems for many different types of people. And pedestrians come in all sizes and ages and shapes. We have many people living within the city area here who are handicapped, who have canes and walkers, who need to operate wheelchairs. There are many children that live within the city. I don't know that people realize that, but even in a congested center city, there are many children, and more are moving into the city. There are elderly people and those who simply want to have a decent, relaxed way of moving from one destination to another.
No, we don't necessarily want to exclude bicycles from the central business district, but where do they belong if not on the sidewalk?
Well, they should obey the rules of the road, which of course is contained in the piece I just read off to you. They need to become educated. They need to ride in the street, or what we would call roadway. It's difficult on some of the city streets to do that. We all realize that. But that is where they should be, and the bicycle organizations are pushing for that.
And you have some bicycle lanes being striped on streets in Philadelphia. How well is that working?
It's sporadic and spotty. If someone wants to cycle from one place to another, the cyclist might meet a designated pathway for bikes, which is great, but then it might stop, and the cyclist is left to fend for him or herself on the street. It can be dangerous.
So, Phillywalks, you're trying to make the sidewalk safe for pedestrians.
Yes.
The bicycle organization's trying to make the streets safe for bicyclists.
Yes. We are working more and more often with the bicycle organizations, and we now serve on one another's boards. So that aspect is getting better because we're speaking with one voice about these various issues, and no longer can some of the city agencies say that we're fighting one another. They're going to have to work with us eventually.
We're in Upper Darby Township talking with John Madera, who's a senior transportation planner with the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. What does the commission do?
We do comprehensive planning for the Philadelphia metropolitan region, which includes 5 counties in Pennsylvania and 4 in New Jersey. We do transportation planning, we do open space planning, We produce housing studies and regional stuff like that relate to land use.
What's this little building behind us?
This little building is the Sea-Cane stop on the regional rail, SEPTA regional rail line, the R3 line to Media and Elwyn. It is in the middle of it's in a suburban location surrounded by apartment complexes and shopping strips and generally poor pedestrian environment.
What makes it difficult for pedestrians here?
Well, the lack of sidewalks primarily. Roughly 50% of the people who access this commuter train station do so on foot, yet on many of the legs, many of the roadway legs approaching this station, there are no sidewalks. In addition, at the intersection up here that's closest to the train station, pedestrians are actually prohibited from crossing with signage. There are no marked crosswalks, so pedestrians are crossing at their own risk.
Now, how did you get involved with this location?
Well, in our work program, we had a project called Pedestrian Safety and Accessibility. We went to our member governments and asked them to recommend locations which the county planners felt needed treatment to make life easier for pedestrians. So Tom Schaefer of the Delaware County Planning Department recommended this location, and it turned out to be a very interesting one. Right here in front of the station, we discovered, looking at PennDOT's accident records, that a number of car pedestrian crashes happened right here in front of the station. So I requested copies of the police reports for those crashes, and they all had the basically same modus operandi, whereby a pedestrian would start out crossing the street either from the far side or from the near side here at the station, would be flagged through by a motorist waiting in line for the signal, and the pedestrian would subsequently get hit by a second car coming in another lane.
The report you came out with, you had a number of recommendations for the area around the station. Let's start with the crossing here. What would you do there?
Well, I recommended a mid-block crosswalk right here. It would be a raised crosswalk. In order to accomplish that, I would have to eliminate the parking at the shopping strip, in front of the shopping strip immediately across the street, and have patrons park in the parking lot in the back of the strip. This idea was not looked on favorably by the township engineer, who felt that in any case encouraging pedestrians to cross mid-block was a dangerous practice and would also diminish the capacity of the roadway to accommodate vehicular traffic during the peak hours.
What were some of the other improvements that you recommended?
In addition to sidewalks and the mid-block crosswalk, we recommended channelizing some of the entrances to the continuous access parking in front of the several small shopping strips in the immediate vicinity, landscaping, benches, a whole program to improve the appearance of the area. We also recommended cutting a gate into the fence which separates the platform from the adjacent apartment complex to minimize the walk that people have to do to get off the train to get to their homes. We also recommended a walkway along the train tracks, which many people use now as a cut-through anyway to get to the station. We're recommending a walkway along the tracks, separated from the tracks by about 10 feet, and a 10-foot high chain link fence.
So you came out with this report. What will it take to eventually get these recommendations put in place? What has to happen?
Well, we have to get PennDOT to agree to the concept, first of all, of a mid-block crosswalk. And I understood that they have done that in principle, although we haven't followed up on that. We need to get the property owners in the immediate vicinity, the homeowners in particular, to agree to have sidewalks installed along their front of their properties. Those are two of the main things that need to happen. We also need to get the business owners in this immediate vicinity to agree to a program to basically improve the appearance of this retail district.
Now you've done this station. There are a lot more stations in the system. Are you going to be looking at them as well?
Yes, we are. Actually, I think we're going to be looking at a station on another system that serves Philadelphia, the PATCO, the Port Authority Transit Corporation of New Jersey. And we're going to be looking at their Lindenwold station. Lindenwold is at the end of the line. It's got the largest park and ride lot in the entire PATCO system. Lindenwold is an apartment community, and many people access the station by foot and by bicycle. Yet conditions are equally horrendous at that station.
We're in Upper Darby Township, Pennsylvania, talking with Patty Voorhees, who's with the Delaware County Intermediate Unit. What is the unit?
The Delaware County Intermediate Unit provides special education services to the local surrounding 15 school districts.
And what do you do for them?
I'm a travel instructor with the DCIU. We teach students with disabilities, those who have mental retardation, someone who may have a brain injury, someone who has a hearing impairment, or is physically impaired, how to travel independently within the county.
And what sort of skills do they need to do that?
Well, in order to travel independently, a person needs to have many different skills. It's very easy to learn how to travel, to learn how to ride a route. It's very easy how to learn how to ride a bus, train, or trolley. The most difficult things are actually the street crossing, because as I oftentimes say during a presentation, that if we were to write a goal for the student, we wouldn't say that they could safely cross the street 3 out of 5 times. They need to be able to cross an intersection at 100% proficiency. And also then the problem-solving skills, what to do when the things go wrong. We call it the what-ifs of instruction. What happens if the bus breaks down and you end up having to get off at a place you're not familiar with? What happens if you fall asleep and miss your stop?
Now you're teaching students how to use buses and other public transportation. Do you have to work with the Transit Authority to accomplish that?
Yes, absolutely. The Transit Authority has been outstanding in working along with us. Some of the things that SEPTA, the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transit Authority, has done, they have given us travel instructor passes so that we as the teachers do not need to pay any fare when we're working with the student. They also have given us things such as if a student has difficulty learning how to stand on a moving bus, they will provide a special bus to come out, and we can work with the student one-on-one without everybody watching. How do you hold on if the bus is crowded and you need to stand? What do you do with the wet umbrella if you're holding on so it doesn't drip onto the knees of the other passengers? They'll do bus demonstrations and bring a bus to the school so that a number of students can practice, especially perhaps students who are wheelchair users, for example, learn how to get on and off the bus, how to position their chair, how do the securement devices work, so that there's an ease of traveling even before they're out in the community. They've even put regional rail cars on a separate track, so we can have students who are, again, wheelchair users learn how to get on and off the train, again, to learn at the rate that they need to learn without having numerous people observing. Also, the travel instructors, right now we have 4 travel instructors that work for our program. We are all special education teachers. we have learned additional skills in order to be able to do the training, and it frequently takes 3 to 6 months before a new teacher coming in can work one-on-one with the student without a supervisor present.
An intersection like the one behind us, how difficult would that be for one of your students?
The intersection behind us is extremely complex in the sense that it is constantly, there's always traffic moving. There is a pedestrian light here that indicates when a person can walk, but the complexities of it, since there are always cars moving, cars turning, makes it difficult for a person to get across. Persons, especially with cognitive disabilities, that would be someone with mental retardation or someone who may have a brain injury, a learning disability, need extra time to process the information that's coming in. So when the light turns green, by the time they check for the traffic, oftentimes wait for a car to turn and want to start to step off, the don't walk signal is flashing. Intersections like these, sometimes in order for a person to learn to travel on their own, some of the things that can assist would be something like the leading pedestrian interval, where the light turns green for the pedestrian, or the walk light comes on for the pedestrian a few seconds before the green light comes on for the traffic. Or perhaps just an exclusive pedestrian signal so that a person who wishes to cross the street has their own phase, their own time to get across.
Other than finding the way around and traffic safety, what are some of the other things that you need to teach your students?
Some of the most significant things that an individual needs to learn, and again, I found this, oftentimes the parents and the individuals you work with teach you the important things that they, for a level of comfort for themselves too, but are areas of such as personal safety. How do you manage your money? How are you discreet with that? Who do you go to for assistance if you need help? You go to a community worker that works in a store such as McDonald's, or you go into, you look for people such as the bus drivers, someone that may have the transit logo on their sleeve. You also, one of the things that we do too is make sure that they know how to interact appropriately with strangers. And we've been very fortunate in Delaware County. We work with the local police departments, and they will provide a plainclothes officer who will approach a student when they think that they're traveling on their own and see if they can obtain personal information, and then subsequently will they accept a ride in a car. And the travel instructors then are watching from a distance and making sure that they respond appropriately, and if not, then we intervene and sit down then with the family and talk again about the need to be cautious while traveling in the community. Other problem-solving things that we have worked with is teaching the students what to do if they miss their stop on the bus, and what happens if they fall asleep or the bus gets detoured because of a pole that falls across the road or a tree. How do you handle that? What happens if you miss your stop, and can you solve that appropriately? We also do something called location identification, where we take students to areas that they don't know that they're at, and then they need to call home to request and share where they are by using signs, and if they can't read, then spelling the name of the sign and giving the name of the street address. Telephone numbers that happen to be on the outside of the sign, so that the family can say, I know where you are, I can come and pick you up. Or they can call the store and find out directions too. So there's lots of different things to help a person to achieve independence.
What are the benefits to the individual student and to the local government to have a program like this?
The benefits are, first of all, for the individual. They can learn how to travel safely and independently, and then they can independently access the community for jobs, for recreational and leisure, to go and for worship purposes, to go to medical appointments. So they have the freedom, the flexibility. Employers find not only are oftentimes persons with disabilities some of the best employees that you can have, from research that has shown, but also the fact that, for example, if someone here working at McDonald's wants to work an extra couple of hours, the employer says, well, I'm running short, I need I need you to stay a couple of extra hours. If they learn to ride the fixed route, they can do that. If they use paratransit services, then they need to leave at the time that the ride is scheduled. For the families of persons with disabilities, It gives them the freedom. Instead of if they were to go and pick up someone, then they would need to always be available and always to schedule their day around the needs of the individual. And then also for the local communities. All mass transit systems that receive federal funds must provide what's called a paratransit service, which must be comparable service, but it's a door-to-door service. They pick the person up at their house and take them to their destination. That is extremely expensive and costs anywhere between $30, $40 per ride for the company. Using the fixed route system, of course, is much cheaper, so it's more cost-effective also. But the most benefit is to the individual. And if you ask most persons with disabilities, especially those who have mental retardation or other cognitive impairments, they want to be out there traveling just like the other people that they work with. So it's a sense of freedom and independence. We have seen many of the students that we work with change over the course because we work on so much of the problem solving, and it's probably the first time in their life that they're actually alone in the community. But we see a change in demeanor. They stand taller, their shoulders are back, they walk with more sense of purpose. It's very exciting.
We're on Laux Road in York, Pennsylvania. It's a road with a lot of businesses, a lot of residents nearby. The sort of place where you'd expect to see a lot of pedestrians. But when Pennsylvania DOT widened this road not too long ago, they didn't do anything to put in a sidewalk. You can see the mud trails where pedestrians do their best to get by. Did PennDOT just forget about pedestrians? It's worse than that. The sound walls behind us were put in to buffer the surrounding neighborhoods from all the noise of the traffic. The space next to the sound wall where you'd expect to see a sidewalk, PennDOT put in large cobblestones and signs saying no pedestrians. They provide no indication of where an alternate route might be or what you're supposed to do when you get there. We wish PennDOT would spend as much effort trying to accommodate pedestrians as they do putting in no pedestrian signs.
Visit us on the internet at www.pedestrians.org.